Do you ever have a vague memory of playing a strange card game with a friend in 4th grade? Maybe you remember getting a weird booster pack from the store, or trading cards at recess without ever really knowing what they were or how they worked. Ah yes, this, my friend, was the new millennium, an era where every franchise tried to get in on the extremely lucrative trading card game phenomena. So sit back, grab a coffee and a snack, because today we're going to talk about 5 forgotten and strange card games that came and went in a blink. But before we tackle those, let's take a look at how TCGs, or trading card games, became so popular in the first place. Now, trading cards have been around for decades. Most of the time they were used as a promotional item for sports, TV shows, or comics. The modern concept of a TCG started with a little game known as Magic the Gathering. And Magic would quite literally change the game forever. Magic the Gathering really did set the standard for all future TCGs, like building custom decks around a theme, having a life point system, and having specific cards for certain roles. Card games before Magic used pretty basic and simple universal rules. You could go to any store and pick up a pack of Uno cards and play a full game, and the exact same cards would be in every pack. Magic used both numbers and text to affect gameplay. Each Magic card was like a small grimoire with a spell on it, and each spell did something different. Creature cards could be revived, attacks could have prolonged effects, and an entire world could be explored through the rich descriptions on each card. Magic was so incredibly immersive and successful that it opened the doorways for other TCGs to not just be a card game, but to be an entire world that players could explore. Despite the loyal fan base, TCGs were still a relatively new and niche hobby, and had yet to catch the eye of mainstream popularity. Well, that all changed in the later part of the 90s, when Japan threw their hat in the ring and said, "Hold my beer." In 1996, Pokemon would hit the trading card scene, and was a massive success. Pokemon was also created by Wizards of the Coast as well. Much like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon was not just a card game, but was also used to flesh out an entire franchise. Like the idea of raising Pokemon, or owning Pokemon, or catching Pokemon. It was translated very well into the card game, where you could catch all the cards, or rather trade all the cards, or buy all the cards. Only 4 years later, Yu-Gi-Oh! Would hit the scene, and also would blow up to massive proportions. Now, unlike Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was more like Magic was, but it was more so for kids. For a while, these 3 card games dominated the market, and all 3 were incredibly lucrative, bringing in millions from their multimedia marketing. So it's no surprise that other companies would aim for the crown as well. And in the 2000s, there were a ton of card games based off of movies, shows, comics, you name it. While most of them kind of just faded away as a one-off try at the card game, some were relatively successful, and one of these was the Neopets trading card game. In the early years of the internet, before YouTube, TikTok, or even social media, people would spend their time on websites and forums where like-minded people could come and chat. One of the earliest domains for kids was Neopets.com. Neopets were all the rage in the 2000s. They were basically America's version of Pokemon, and for a very brief period, were a genuine rival to Pokemon. Neopets started out as a browser-based game. They hosted a free-to-play platform where kids could raise and interact with a virtual pet called a Neopet. The internet was still very young at this point. There wasn't streaming services, mobile gaming, or even social media apps. So for a while, everyone I knew had a Neopet. At the time, it occupied a niche that was unfulfilled and unrivaled. Neopets grew so successful that the IP popped its virtual bubble and spilled into the consumer space. There were video games, plushies, even McDonald's toys. And as a natural competitor to Pokemon, Neopets would launch its own card game, by none other than Wizards of the Coasts. See, I told you these guys would pop up again. For whatever reason, they just kind of made magic. Get it? Magic. Now, I actually collected quite a few Neopet cards back in the day, and in fact, I had probably an entire tote full of them. I grew up in a fairly religious household, and at the time, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Was seen as demonic. There was an entire era where schools would ban Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards because they believed it would, destroy your children's souls.
Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means Hail Satan.
So for a while, the only kind of cards I could get were Neopet cards. But despite how many cards I had, I never really found out how to play the game until I was much older. The launch was ambitious. There were sets that ran alongside events or plots from the Neopet.com world. And for someone like me who was on the platform daily, I felt in the know when new cards came out. For instance, when Mystery Island was introduced to the Neopets map, Neopets promoted it by partnering with General Mills and launching their own cereal called Island Berry Crunch. And it sucked. I still remember it to this day. If you want to know what it tastes like, just think of wet cardboard and strawberries. I remember I would beg my mom to get the cereal only because it had one of 3 Mystery Island promo cards, and I would pretty much just throw the rest of the cereal away without telling her. General Mills also added Neopet cards to their other cereal brands as well, and from what I remember, this worked. Most of the kids I knew had these cards, and for a while, Neopets was a household name. One of the coolest eras of Neopets was the Darkest Fairy era. It was a huge overarching story that took place through Neopets Plots, a PS2 video game called The Darkest Fairy, and through the trading card game. So again, it was awesome seeing Neopets take advantage of all these different avenues to flesh out their world. But with such a huge push, what was the Neopets trading card game really like? Most card games require players to battle using monsters, but for Neopets, players would instead compete in contests for item cards, with different stats judging who would win what contests. For instance, a Neopet could have a high strength stat, but a low wisdom stat. So this Neopet would be best in a contest of strength. There are a ton of different cards in the game, including some of the heroes and villains from the Neopets world. And much like Pokemon, you can level up your Neopets into an experienced Neopet. There are some more complex rules to the game, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, the Neopets card game would be discontinued in 2006 after Wizards of the Coast and Neopets agreement was up. The Neopet brand today is but an ember compared to the inferno it once was, but the card game will always be an important part of my childhood. The good news is you can pick up these cards fairly cheap online. Unfortunately, that is not the case with the next card game on our list, the Hot Wheels Acceleracers trading card game. Now, the Acceleracers franchise is no stranger to my channel. I've already made a couple of videos going over the series, but I have yet to go over the strangest part of the franchise, the trading card game. The Acceleracers trading card game was released alongside the premium Hot Wheel vehicles from the movies. Not only did I play this game all the time as a kid, but I'd even say it's one of my favorite card games I've ever played. The way that Mattel handled the marketing, though, was very odd, to say the least. You see, unlike regular trading card games, you couldn't just pick up an individual booster pack. Instead, there's only 3 ways you could get your hands on these Acceleracers cards. Number 1 is a 15 card booster pack. Number 2 is buying the Hot Wheels Accelerator vehicles. And number 3 is buying the starter deck. Now, as for the 15 card booster pack, I know they exist because I bought one off of Amazon years ago. However, I never once, as a child, saw them anywhere in any store. These were rarer than the rarest car. We're talking about Reverb. I saw Reverb before I saw one of these 15 card booster packs. Speaking of, only 3 different cards came with each vehicle. Now, as somebody trying to play the card game, this was a huge problem. Most Accelerator cars were incredibly rare to find even back then, so it was not uncommon for me to go to Kmart or Toys R Us and see nothing but Ratified and Rolling Thunders. I swear I probably had at least 3 Ratifieds, but if you wanted to get new cards to play the game, you had to buy the vehicles. The issue with that was, with only 3 cards per pack, the chances of getting a rare or even a different card was like looking for a holo Charizard in a pile of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. You see, if you bought a vehicle, then chances are at least one of the cards in the booster would be of that vehicle. So if you bought a Ratified, you would most likely get a Ratified vehicle card. Oddly enough, Sears, of all places, is where I found Reverb and Technentium. I guess people didn't really think to check Sears for Hot Wheel cars, but anyway, that's how I own a Reverb card. It was a smart way to market the Accelerator vehicles for sure, but as a card game, incredibly incompetent. Each vehicle sold for nearly $3, and if you're buying the Hot Wheels just to get the cards, then to get the required 40 cards for a deck, it would cost over $40. That's $1 for every card, by the way. The only other way to get these cards were through the starter deck, but again, these were incredibly hard to find. Now, the starter deck is the easiest and cheapest way to play the game back then and today as well. You can find these starter decks online today as low as $200. The drawback to this, like any other starter deck, is all the cards in the starter deck are presets. So if you wanted to get the good cards like holos or holo foils, you had to burn through a lot of Hot Wheel packs. The only other way of getting your hands on these cards are just buying them on the aftermarket, which is not recommended. Some of these cards will set you back more than the Hot Wheels themselves, and they already go for an insane amount. It truly is one of the most expensive TCGs to collect, let alone play. But if you manage to find enough cards and found someone else who had enough cards, then you're in for a good time. The game itself is incredibly fun and fairly simple. Again, this card game is very different from most card games at the time. Instead of battling, the goal is to race through the racing realms, much like the movies. Some of the realm cards are completely new for the game, like the Chrome Realm, which is a nice nod to all the realms we never got to see in the movies. To win, each player must get 3 vehicle cards through 4 realms. Each realm has a number based on speed, performance, and power. The game uses other cards like shift and mod cards to raise stats as needed. Hazard cards are the only offensive cards and can be used to impede the other player's progress. The Excella Chargers are basically this game's version of the God cards, and are extremely satisfying to pull. Not only are they indestructible, but they also are permanent. There are more rules, of course, and I'll be linking the rules to this game and all the others in the links below. So hopefully if you want to play it, you can look there and you can find out how. One of my absolute favorite card games that I've ever played, and I would love to play it again someday if I could find someone who also had enough cards to play. Speaking of a full deck, the next card game on this list has one of the most unusual decks that I've ever seen. The Zatch Bell trading card game. Now, I never actually owned any of these cards growing up, but I did watch the anime on Toonami. I always wanted to get my hands on these cards as a kid because they came with these really cool deck holders, which are fashioned to look like the spellbooks from the anime. The spellbook is not just a deck holder though, it was the deck, and is crucial in playing the game. To understand how this game works, we have to talk a little about Zatch Bell. Zatch Bell is a story about a little Mamato boy called Zatch, who is from a realm called the Mamato World, or the Demon World. Every 1,000 years, 100 Mamatos descend to Earth and must participate in a tournament with a human partner. Whoever is the last Mamato standing becomes the new king of the Mamato World. And the way the fights work in the anime was, the Mamato partners have the power to summon the spells that the Mamatos use. A battle is won by whoever can destroy the other's Mamato's book first. So think of it basically like Dragon Ball Z, but as Pokemon. The card game works in a similar manner to the battles in the series. Spells, or in this case cards, are pulled from the spellbook and summoned to the battlefield. There must be a Mamato present on your side of the field to play cards. Once your turn is over, you must flip the page in the spellbook. And once the page is flipped, you cannot go back. Since the spellbook is both the deck and the hand, it makes building strategies and comboing cards tricky. But one saving grace is you can place cards in any order you desire prior to playing. The rules for winning are not based on health points, but are based on who gets to the end of the spellbook first. If you run out of pages, then you lose. It's a battle of attrition, making someone burn through their entire deck as quickly as possible, while also making sure that you're taking advantage of every card in the page. Damage from cards won't affect health, but will force a player to flip through more pages. In my opinion, this is a very unique way of winning. Most card games have this option as a win condition, but to have it be your only win condition, it's quite interesting. Now, as for getting these cards, the only real way you can get them at this point is on the aftermarket, and they're pretty cheap to get. You can get a starter deck for roughly $10. Using your deck as your hand is an interesting concept that you really don't see too often. It definitely makes the Zatch Bell TCG stand out from the other card games at the time. But it's not the only card game on this list that uses a deck as a hand. The next card game on this list also does the same thing, and may be one of the strangest card games that I've ever seen. And that is the LEGO Knights Kingdom trading card game. That's right, LEGO made a card game. It was fast, unfair, and you probably never heard of it. Now, LEGO has dabbled in card games in the past, like the Bionicle trading card game, but this one was unique for a couple of reasons. The Knights Kingdom, or more accurately, Knights Kingdom 2, was a sub-theme of LEGO Castle. But in the 2000s, LEGO felt the castle theme needed a little of that 2000s magic. And in 2004, LEGO introduced the colorful knights of the Kingdom of Morcia. LEGO is hoping to mimic the success of Bionicle, which was its greatest IP at the time. They even made Bionicle-like sets for the Knights Kingdom characters, which again was LEGO's attempt into the action figure scene, something they would keep trying with varying degrees of success. Despite attempts to keep the line going, Knights Kingdom 2 only lasted for 3 years. It is remembered today as one of LEGO's more ambitious attempts at a franchise, and in a lot of ways was a blueprint for LEGO's future success, Ninjago. But one thing that always kind of stood out to me about Knights Kingdom was the weird card game that came with each set. Each set came with 3 Knights Kingdom trading cards. You had to buy an $8 LEGO set just to get your hands on 3 cards, which again, like Acceleracers, makes collecting these cards a challenge. The saving grace though, was Knights Kingdom was way more accessible to play. Only a handful of cards were needed to play a full game. Unlike most card games at the time, this one could be played quickly, and depending on which card you draw first, it could end the game immediately. The game worked a lot like rock, paper, scissors. Each card had one of 4 symbols at the very top: a sword, helmet, shield, and the heart of the magical shield symbol. Each player would take their top card and flip it, starting a joust. Depending on which symbol was at the top, they either became the challenger or the defender. You see, the 3 symbols that are used like rock, paper, scissors, that being the helmet, shield, and sword, all could cancel each other out. The 4th symbol though, being the heart of the magical shield, trumped all other symbols. So if you draw that card, and unless they have a card with that symbol on it, you would just win. And there isn't any limit necessarily to how many of these cards you can have in a deck. So theoretically, you could just have every card be a heart of the magical shield. See, part of the rules for this game is you can place any card you want in any order you want. So that means you could always have a heart of the magical shield card at the very top of your deck. Whoever won the joust can now set which of the categories will be used for the rest of the game. Each card had 4 different categories: strength, speed, agility, and wisdom. The defending player then draws a card and places it face down on the challenger's card. Whichever card has the highest skill point in that category will have won that round. The game wasn't broken on a technical level, it was just boring. Everything is done through the deck, and whoever runs out of cards first loses. It's a lot like Zatch Bell, except without all the nuance and charm. It's just very repetitious. LEGO had this period in the 2000s where they got very experimental, to varying degrees of success, with home runs like Bionicles and complete utter failures like Galador. Knights of the Kingdom was fairly safe. Although not as ambitious as other lines like Exoforce and Ninjago, Knights Kingdom will always be remembered as one of the best castle themes LEGO has made. But the card game aspect felt like an afterthought. Clearly it was more of a gimmick for the sets rather than a true attempt at a trading card game. Which explains why the only way to get these cards was through LEGO sets. The game really needed more polish, more rules, and more cards to play. Some rules that I think could have helped Knights Kingdom become a solid card game would be shuffling the decks, allowing only one part of the magical shield card per deck, having special cards with effects like trap cards or stall cards, and having a set number of cards per deck. Let's say 10 to 20. I know this would be a pain considering how hard it was to get these cards, but that brings me to my final thought. LEGO should have simply had booster packs of 5 or more cards. They could have been in the LEGO aisle right underneath the Knights Kingdom sets. As is, this game really did lack any kind of nuance or strategy. It was basically just a keep flipping cards and hope you get lucky. The Knights Kingdom card game really didn't feel like a card game that was made to be mastered. It felt like a game that was just made to kind of exist. According to Mike Rayhawk, the artist that conceptualized Knights Kingdom, he and some colleagues of his were tasked with creating the art for the cards within 2 weeks. This is because the third party responsible for making the cards dropped out, making the first batch of cards very rushed. And honestly, that is a very good way to describe this game, rushed. Had LEGO added a smidge more complexity and would have made it more accessible, who knows, maybe this game could have saved the franchise. Maybe Knights Kingdom would still be around today. But as is, it's honestly the most bare bones and boring card games on this list. The next and final card game on this list is almost as strange, but for completely different reasons. The Quick Strike Avatar: The Last Airbender trading card game. Quick Strike was a battle card system created by Upper Deck. Yes, that Upper Deck. The Avatar TCG is technically just an expansion of the Quick Strike system. In a lot of ways, Upper Deck made Quick Strike to be what Magic is today, a platform for other IPs to have expansions in their card game, like the Final Fantasy VII expansion, or even Magic's own take on Avatar: The Last Airbender. But for whatever reason, this concept just didn't stick back then. I think the biggest issue for why Quick Strike failed was recognition. Like, Magic the Gathering is basically trading card game incarnate. It's the first, it's the most played, and it's still going strong today. With all those years of fame under its belt, and consistent rules since inception, it's no wonder that third parties would be flocking to Magic for some of that sweet recognition. Quick Strike though? Nobody knew what this was or how to play. It just kind of popped up. And in its entirety, Quick Strike only had 3 expansions, and they were kind of weird. You had the Avatar: The Last Airbender set, you had the Pirates of the Caribbean set, and then you had the Shaman King set. That's such a weird roster of IPs for a card game. And the sad thing is, the Quick Strike system wasn't half bad. Honestly, it was really unique in nearly every way. Unfortunately, there was no gateway to get into the game. Heck, even Neopets had an outlet for people to get invested. Quick Strike, though, just took a bunch of random IPs and threw them in a card game and expected it to blow up. With that being said, how was the Quick Strike system? Well, it was actually pretty fun. In fact, I think Quick Strike probably put more effort into their card game than any other card game on this list. For the examples here, we are going to be using the Avatar expansion, but the rules work for the other 2 sets as well. Like the other card games in this video, Quick Strike does not have a typical hand. Rather, you play cards directly from the deck to the field. And this is the heart and soul of the Quick Strike system. The game utilizes zones. Green zone is where both players start off, and then there's the yellow zone and red zone. Each zone gets 3 energies to start with in the energy area. To play cards in a zone requires the energy to do so, and the objective of the game is to attack the opposing player by flipping cards and blasting through their defenses. Each player has 3 chances to block an attack or counterattack. If an attack is made through the green, yellow, and red zone successfully, then that player gets a point. The first player to 3 points wins the game. The game has a lot of cool concepts that really makes it stand out from other card games at the time, and just in general. For instance, each deck is played around one main card called a chamber card. This is a large, solid card portraying a character from the series. Each card has special values like elements they could use, if they align with good or bad, or what their character's fighting style is. Something really cool about these cards in particular is there was actually a secret card hidden inside of them. These are special abilities that only these cards can use, and unlike most other cards, they need to be charged to play. You can charge these special abilities by turning cards into energy. There are a lot of other rules like ally cards and event cards, so I'll be sure to post the rules to this game in the description below. Overall, I think Quick Strike was a fantastic concept, but it just proves that having a great concept isn't always enough to succeed. Most of the card games in this video are strange for one reason or the other, whether it's weird marketing or game mechanics. But one thing they all have in common is they are gone now. But just because they're gone doesn't mean they can't still thrive. Some of these games still have strong fan bases, like Neopets and Acceleracers. And not that long ago, Neopets released a new card game called Battle Arena, which is very nostalgic for people who grew up with Neopets. There are a handful of other trading card games that I would have liked to have put in this video, but unfortunately it would have made it too long. So if you want to see a second part to this, let me know in the comments below. Do you have any memories of playing these games? Maybe there's a card game I didn't cover that you remember fondly. And as always, this has been Tender Chicken Guy, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.